This is the Forbes Books Podcast, conversations with amazing humans who are impacting the world of business and beyond. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and today I'm joined by Blake Johns, the founder of Smokeye Hill Whiskey. He's going to share the incredible true story of how his new premium craft bourbon blew up after unexpectedly winning the Bourbon of the Year and Best Small Batch Bourbon at the Ascot Awards, which is like the Oscars of the spirits industry. Now, as you know from listening, I'm a bit of a lightweight and more of a beer and vodka guy, so this is going to be very informative for me and hopefully for you as well. So, Blake, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Joe. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I have to be completely honest with you, Blake. One, I'm not a brown spirits drinker, and two, I've never been on a horse. So let's start with the horse thing. From what I understand, before you became this giant whiskey magnet, this mogul, you were an equestrian. So can you, because this is just fascinates me because, again, never been on a horse, never really wanted to be on a horse. Tell me about your life in horses first, before we get into the whiskey part of it all.
For sure. Well, for you, you might want to sip a brown spirits first since the Smokeye Hill. Then you might have the courage to get on the horse. I grew up in Arizona, an equestrian family. We've had a cattle ranch that we've owned in our family since 1940. And I really fell into it because that's what my family did. You know, one of my first jobs was mucking stalls, out at 6 a.m. and 100-degree heat, and taking care of the horses. And, we had a great opportunity to grow up and do something unique and different. I mean, I learned so many valuable lessons, life lessons and business lessons as well, throughout my time riding horses. And we had a great experience. I was, it seems like a lifetime ago, but I am a former world champion. And so I know what it's like to dedicate yourself to, achieve high goals.
That's awesome. Well, I always say that athletes and I think artists are sort of naturally born with that entrepreneurial spirit because, it's very much merit-based where it's like you got to put in the work. It's no one's going to care more about your work than you do. So it kind of fits nicely. So one more thing about the horses. So you said you were a world champion. What does that mean? Again, not a horse guy. When you're a world champion equestrian, what does that mean? Like, is there like the World Series of horses? Like, tell me about this.
There kind of is, to be honest. So I grew up riding quarter horses, which is a specific breed of horses, right? So we would compete against other the same breed of quarter horses. We would travel around. I spent a lot of time in my youth and even early my 20s traveling the country, right? And you compete against other top exhibitors. What would happen is you have to qualify, earn a certain amount of points, and then you ultimately earn an invitation to compete against the whole country, the whole world, essentially, at the World Championship show. So that's what being a world champion entails to get there. And then at that point, you have your own specific class. I competed in Western events. People are like, oh, did you do the jumping and this and that? No, that's too scary for me. It was mostly just all the Western events. And it was wonderful. And so I was fortunate enough to have all the hard work finally pay off for me and come home with a world championship trophy and buckle. It's something I'm still very proud of to this day, and not something I get a chance to talk about all the time anymore. So
I'm glad. And last thing on this topic. So you talk about you devoted, it sounds like a major part of your life to this, and you said you did it into your 20s. Why and when did it end? Is it, and again, as you can tell, not a horse guy. So can you do equestrian stuff till like your 40s and 50s? Like, is it the shelf life of a professional athlete? Like, tell me about your story in terms of like at that point in your life where you kind of said, okay, I've done all I could with this, world champion, like you did the Michael Jordan thing. You walked out as a champion, but what was it like and why did you walk away?
Oh, great question. I mean, my mom is about to turn 70 and she still competes to this day. So I would say it's something that can keep you young at heart. And if you love to do something, it's what you generally are passionate about, then by all means do it for as long as you can. Me personally, it got to the point where it was such a commitment to do this at such a high level, and it required a lot of, just a lot of time, but I didn't have. I'm starting my professional career and I'm switching gears. And then, from that to starting a family, unfortunately, I just didn't have that much time to do what it takes. Now, I still enjoy riding horses. I still, any chance I get, I jump at the opportunity to go, ride around for a little bit. And trust me, with my mom, I have two brothers. They both continue to show, and they both, we've all kind of done it at the same high level. So it's something that brings me a lot of enjoyment, but the competition aspect of it is just really, really time consuming. And hopefully one day I can get back into doing it.
That's awesome. Maybe when you're like in your 70s or 80s, maybe you'll be like one of those seniors, like the Golden Bachelor. You'll be the Golden Equestrian.
Yes, I love it.
All right. No more horsing around here. Pardon the pun. Let's get back to the second part of my thing about me never drinking brown spirits. So from what I understand, the story of Smokeye Hill Whiskey is a bit of a rocky. Like, you guys came out of nowhere. And again, speaking of world champions, like, won prizes. So before we get into your rocky story in terms of like how you basically were like this new kid on the block and then started winning all these awards, why whiskey? What was, like I said, not a brown spirits guy. I wouldn't be the first thing I would think of entrepreneurship.
Right.
What drew you into that space?
You know, Joe, it was honestly it was a deep passion of mine. It started with me being a bourbon enthusiast first and foremost, but backing up prior to that, as you kind of mentioned earlier, you know, horses, brown, you know, whiskey, brown spirits went pretty hand in hand. And my grandfather, someone who I deeply respected, who has inspired me to do what I'm doing now. You know, it's one of my first memories with him it's a very visceral memory of sitting on his knee in his den, these, you know, kind of cool oak paneled walls and his favorite like armchair. And, you know, he's just sitting there with this tumbler of this beautiful brown spirit. And I'm way too young to know what this is, but there was just something about that memory that I had, seeing him him slow down to enjoy some of life's, you know, most precious moments. And at that point, he was just sitting with his grandkids and we're just talking and hear him tell stories. And so I think that was the original kind of hook when I was a kid. So, oh, what is my grandfather drinking, you know, and just how it was kind of a part of this, you know, not to make him sound like he had a drinking problem, because by no means did he, but it was one of those things that, you know, when it was that time of day and we were lucky enough to see him, that's kind of what happened. But the story is Smokeye Hill, and the reason why I did it and built the brand the way that I did is really an homage to my family. And it was an authentic way for me to kind of tell my story through my passion. And, you know, that really all coincided and aligned with me starting Smokeye Hill, you know, this passion, family, creating a premium craft product, which I wholeheartedly believed in. And, you know, now we're seeing all this hard work kind of gets to the point where it's paying off.
That's awesome. That's great. And I've done enough of these business podcasts interviewing folks like yourself in the spirits industry. And I've sort of educated myself in terms of, you know, I think a lot of people think, oh, I'll come up with this whiskey, you know, I'll get into the barrels, do all the stuff you're supposed to do, and then I'll just sell it. And it's a lot more complicated than that, Blake. As you probably know, there's this whole mysterious distributor world that most people don't know about, the idea of shelf space in liquor stores. So tell me about your education in that space, because it is not easy and is not for the faint of heart for most entrepreneurs in the spirits industry.
No, absolutely not. And that's where it really took me being passionate and saying, hey, look, this is my life's journey, right? I'm in it for the long haul. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but it's something that I enjoy waking up every single day and doing. And my background was not in spirits world or even wine. And so for me, there was a lot to learn. But how we set this company up was we founded it 5 years ago. And so I had a lot of time as we had to be patient and wait for this to hit just the right sweet spot to really get my feet wet and immerse myself. And even prior to that too, I just threw myself head first into what, you know, trying to figure out if this could be a viable option for me or not. And there are plenty of different avenues for someone to get involved in the spirit space. And what does that look like? You know, how there's a few different, you know, kind of general roadmaps you could follow. And so for me, it was doing a lot of research on what would work for what we have, for what resources I have. And, you know, again, you just try to align yourself with other great like-minded people who know more about things than you do. And you put your ego aside. And I just dove headfirst into learning everything I could about whiskey.
And you went on this grind, and then all of a sudden, you guys come out of nowhere. I said this rocky story of winning the Ascot Award, which is a very prestigious award in the spirits world. Tell me about that like lead up to that. And did you even think you had a shot? Because from what I understand, reading up on it, you guys like came out of nowhere. Like most people were like, what is Smokeye? Who are these people? And then all of a sudden you guys are winning this award. So tell me about the lead up to the awards, like how you were feeling,
Yeah.
and then what it was like winning it.
Yeah, Joe, I'm going to be honest. This has been one of the craziest, most unbelievable stories that I've ever been a part of. You're going to think, and a lot of people think, who did I sleep with? Who did I pay off? Like, none of that. Trust me, this is something that you cannot ever expect to have, right? So, we entered this competition basically on a lark, right? We're a new brand. We hadn't even hit the market yet. And, the idea was, let's see if anyone likes our juice. Let's see if anyone likes Smokeye Hill. And so we entered this competition. Long story short, they tell us that we're nominated for best small batch bourbon, which, we look at the other nominees and there are some of the biggest names in the space that we're up there against. So right then and there, I go, oh my gosh, guys, like, I guess we're on to something big here. Like, they're enjoying it. And so I'm out in the field, our very first, ride along. At this point, we hadn't even hit the market yet, right? I'm out in the field. It's hot. I'm sweating. We're, out in the just shaking hands, trying to sell a bottle at a time, pretty much. And I get a call from one of my partners. It says, you might want to check out the results. And I said, well, tell me, I'm out in the field. What's going on? I can't just pull this up. I'm in a store. And he goes, we just won best small batch bourbon. And for me, for where this brand was, for the fact that no one knew anything about us, I felt like we had just won the lottery. Like I was the luckiest guy in the world. All this hard work to receive that sort of news and that feedback from the industry people that I respect was tremendous. So, we're coming off that high. About 8 minutes later, I get another call and they say, "Did you hear the news?" And immediately my heart sinks. I'm like, oh my gosh, did they make a mistake or they're revoking the best seller? Because this is going to be really bad. And he goes, no. He goes, we didn't just win best small batch bourbon. He goes, we won bourbon of the year. We beat every other bourbon out there that was in the spirits tasting competition. And the thing is, it's a blind tasting competition. No one knew who we were from anybody else. And we shocked the judges. They had no idea who we were, what we were. And I'm telling you, Joe, overnight, that winning that competition completely changed the trajectory of our brand.
Wow. What a great story. Thank you for sharing that. And it almost feels like, I always like to find analogous things. It's almost like that actor that wins their first Oscar, like all of a sudden it propels them. It's like when Nick Cage won his Oscar for Leaving Las Vegas, then all of a sudden he becomes an action star and he's like in every action movie. Is that sort of what happens in your world, where winning this award propels you and then launches you into stores, that aforementioned distributor world I was talking about earlier? Does it make things easier for you?
It does. And that's kind of the way that we've compared it to. It really does feel like we were the dark horse that came out of nowhere, that was nominated for like you said, you referenced like the Oscars. That's what it felt like for us. And, overnight, it pretty much put us on the map. When you're named the bourbon of the year, people that follow this in the industry, obviously their ears start to perk up and people pay attention. And for us too, this is the dream scenario. You want to build a brand on the back of a great product and something you believe in and something that people love. This is what it came down to. And it was scary to enter this because it is kind of a make or break situation, right? If it's received well, amazing. We hit the jackpot. If received poorly, it's a lot of hard work, time, and money that went into that. And that can all be jeopardized pretty quick. So yes, to answer your question, it was like drinking out of a fire hose, to be honest. We're like I said, we were out there day one. We're trying to sell a bottle at a time. And next thing you know, we're getting orders for dozens of cases and now up to hundreds, and being some of the biggest retailers in the country.
That's awesome. Out of curiosity, as you can tell, I don't know shit about this, but someone listening may know more about bourbons and whiskeys than I do listening. But what separates the two? Like, I have dabbled and like tasted it, and like I remember, I'll share a story with you. I was at a tasting party, and I'm not going to say the name of the brand, and it was like a private event in New York City. It's like this Fifth Avenue penthouse, very exclusive. It's like all these people in like the hospitality restaurant space, and they're like, okay, we're going to try this blank. And then the room goes quiet, and all you hear in the room is me, I'm like my body aching because I'm not used to drinking this, so I cannot tell what is good, what is bad. So like everyone looks around like, who is this idiot? Like what doesn't know how to drink whiskey? So what separates one from the other? Is it so? I mean, is it ephemeral? Is it something like super subjective? Like, tell me about like the differences in terms of like what separates you from other brands.
Sure. I mean, I love that story too, by the way. That's made me laugh. Very relatable for a lot of people. Look, there are some misconceptions. People say, okay, are you people believe a lot of people believe that bourbon must be from Kentucky, right? So when you're talking about whiskey, what is whiskey and understanding the different segments? There is a lot of misinformation out there as well, but the way that we look at it is whiskey is the big broad umbrella, right? Within that, you have all the separate categories. You have your bourbon, which is amazingly enough, America's only native spirit, right? So, you can have champagne, but it's got to come from the Champagne region of France. You can have Scotch whiskey, but it has to come from Scotland. Tequila, the same thing, right? From certain region of Mexico. Bourbon can only be made and produced in the United States, which is fun. And so when it came time to trying to figure out like what we could do that could add value to the bourbon space and do something that was a little bit different, because look, there's plenty of great bourbons out there. They're amazing ones. A lot of ones we're competing with are fantastic. And on any given day, people might say, I like this one over this one, right? For us, though, it was really, and again, when I talk about my family story, my heritage, and I can get into it shortly, but how we came to, come up with our mash bill, which is essentially like the secret ingredients. Like we did that very different. Our process is unique. And so doing a few different things like that really, I think, set us apart within the space and has allowed us now to have something to build on.
And so tell me about this family aspect here. You mentioned it a couple of times. How does the Blake Johns family intertwine? Is it one with the company? Is it how involved is the family like in terms of developing the taste profile, developing what the brand looks like? Take me behind the scenes.
So I'll start with Smokeye Hill, the brand name. As I mentioned earlier, that my family came out from the Midwest and purchased this cattle ranch in northern Arizona in 1940. Okay, so that's what started everything. That's got everyone into horses, into ranching, into that whole life, right? Smokeye Hill is an actual region, an actual hill on our ranch where we found not too long ago an old, like remnants of an old moonshine era still that was on them. I mean, there wasn't much left of it. It was just a few, rusted pieces of metal essentially, but that's what it was. And so hearing that story and, again, my affinity, my love for the way I grew up, for the region I grew up in Arizona, for this kind of unique lifestyle that I was born into, having something that connect all those dots and provide true meaning to me, like the name Smokeye Hill, like it just embodies essentially me and my love for my family, why we do this. Another interesting fact too about Smokeye Hill is once I decided that, hey, look, like I'm going to do this, I'm going to follow my dream, like let's build this company. I mean, look more into who was making moonshine on the ranch, like the Prohibition. Like I said, we acquired it in the 40s, and prior to that, it was someone else's property. What I discovered was really, really interesting. This area in northern Arizona was actually really well known for making moonshine, and they would sell it statewide, all the way out even to Hollywood, right? And so there was the story of this local prohibition agent who, anytime they would come to make a raid on any of the towns, would essentially call the towns or notify the townsfolk and say that they were coming. They were going to be going fishing. And at that point, they were tipping off, the townspeople, letting them know they were coming. And they did this ingenious thing. They tied cowbells to the necks of these mules and let these mules kind of roam through the hills. It's like an early warning that the law was coming. So essentially, like if you hear the bells, run like hell, And so discovering that, again, tying back to my family, to my roots, like it everything kind of just fell into place for this really natural, authentic, organic brand. And again, that's kind of what it all boils down to.
That's so cool. It's so funny, like when you speak to folks in the spirit industry, that story part of it is so huge. When did you realize the impact of story? Because again, Blake, you tell a story about your old man and sitting on his lap, and this very sort of classic Norman Rockwell of America of family, but that's not going to sell whiskey. It's this other stuff that's going to do it. When did you realize that story was going to be a big part of what Smokeye Hill would become?
Yeah, great question, Joe. I mean, I think early on, in my past experience, I had worked doing marketing. And one of my favorite things was doing market research and trying to identify consumer behaviors and what made a product viable or not. So I had a really good understanding of what you could do to build a brand to really try and separate yourself, right? And so for me, why I think Smokeye Hill is my dream job, something I'm so incredibly passionate about, when trying to obviously launch a brand. We're a premium brand. Our bottles are very nice. Our process, our ingredients are very expensive. We utilize blue corn, which is one of the signature unique selling points of our brand. The bottle is very premium. You hold it, it's expensive. Our barrels, we use smaller barrels. We have to buy more of them. And so it's an expensive product. So at that point, again, how are we going to deliver value to a customer, right? I want people to, when they pick up the bottle, to have that experience of, look, like there's a lot of time and thought and care that goes into this. This brand is not just some silly made up thing from just, it has no meaning to it. To me, this is my life. What I want to do is I want to help people enjoy their life as well and bring people together to have, spark interesting conversations, meet new people, and, packaging, all of that, the look and feel, the bottle, the story. You have to make a really compelling package. And luckily enough for me that this was true, and I was just able to put it all together. And again, it all comes kind of back to my family, and I can keep saying that ad nauseum, but that's what it comes down to.
You're like the Fast and the Furious of whiskeys. It sounds like it's all about the family. I love that. Let's talk about you mentioned the word expensive and premium a couple times there. What are we talking? Like, what's a bottle go for these days? What's the retail price? All that jazz.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have two products. We have our barrel proof product, which is the whiskey that comes, it's unadulterated, unfiltered. It's straight from the barrel. So it's essentially at a very high alcohol content and proof. Then we have that same amazing whiskey. We proof that down to probably a more approachable everyday drinker, which is our 93 proof and our classic. That's the white label, which is behind me. And then the blue label is also is the barrel proof. Now the blue label is the one that won all the accolades. Not that the classic didn't, but it's the same juice, it's just a different proof, right? So the barrel proof, I think at this point offers a pretty good value because some of the brands it beat were 10 times more expensive. Everything's under $100, wow, which is great. The barrel proof, we're looking at $84.99, and then the classic, the white label, is just under $70, $69.99.
Okay, I mean, again, as you say this to me, all these prices, I'm like, all right, I guess that sounds expensive. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm used to Costco and getting my Kirkland vodka for for $12, and I get a giant Is this the kind of brand that is ready to make that jump to giant retail where you're going to be available? Like, I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. Will I be able to go down to my Costco in West Ashley and pick up a bottle of this? Or what's the reach of the brand right now?
Yeah, Joe, that's a great question. Look, that's our ultimate goal. I think starting this brand, we had big aspirations and big goals. We're well on our way to achieving those. I think we hit the ground running. It's about as quickly as you could. For now, though, look, it is a scarce product. We don't have that much year one, right? And so, unfortunately, what's happening is that people that are wanting to try Smokeye Hill and try the Bourbon of the Year, unfortunately, just don't have the opportunity because we don't have that much. The small batch, the blue label, the barrel proof, and so that is something that as we continue, right, to grow and scale, that's what we're focused on, is how can we achieve massive growth but still retain the same premium quality, not sacrifice the integrity of the whiskey, and get it to a point where people can enjoy it if they want to. And unfortunately, we just didn't have that year one, but be patient, get it out there as soon as we can.
on the subject, is it a chicken and the egg thing? Would you have been able to scale had you not won this award? Or do you feel like, oh God, we won this award and we can't take advantage of it? Is there some sort of, and me as an overthinker, I'd be like, oh fuck, did we win this too early? Should we have submitted, like, this is just me, but like, were you thinking like, oh my God, did we peak too early? Is this something, are people going to forget about this in 2 years? Like, does a lot of this stuff worry you?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, as a founder, right, you're very concerned about everything. Look, at the end of the day, what happened to us was like winning the lottery. We would take this any day, and I think any brand would as well. Yes, I wish we had more, but as we started this, look, we did this the hard way, and we had to be patient. And I think that's one thing too. In the spirits world, and whiskey in particular, it's an aged product. This is a 5-year-old product. Most of our competition in the craft brand world doesn't necessarily go as long as 5 years. We started from scratch. We didn't source any barrels. We didn't buy from this distillery 14-year-old barrel or this or that. We did it the hard way, and we did it from scratch. And so, what we have done is have to account for growth and to scale when we started this. And so next year we have significantly more than we do year one. And we've have had forecasts 5 years out. I will say, though, in this space in particular, while we wish we had the inventory to satisfy everyone that would love to try and taste it, and believe me, like nothing is more frustrating, it's a scarce product. And in whiskey, you look at some of the really high sought after collectible products, it's because there's not much of it. And it kind of has an opposite effect to where it makes it kind of more desirable because people want to try it.
I'm wondering though, in this world where to scale up, how do you do it without being an acquisition? Like, is it, are you taking on investors? Because I feel like in this world, it's sort of like in the beverage space too, is like, you'll hear someone say, hey, I've come up with this new drink and hopefully one day Coca-Cola or Pepsi is going to want to buy it. Or, if I'm in the beer space, hopefully InBev is going to want to buy this thing. Is this something that's, I know you're already forecasting 5 years out. Is this something that you're eyeing? Like, how am I going to build this company? Because I can't do it on my own. So am I looking at investors? Am I looking at acquisition? Give me some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, great question. Obviously, it is a very capital intensive industry, especially with what we're doing. We have to be patient. We have to wait, right? We can't just make more tomorrow and that's it. So I think where we're at, we're in a really good position. With how we're funded right now. I think, our focus has always just been on let's just roll with the punches as they come, right? We're pretty nimble, which is great. Right now, we're completely privately owned, and we don't have to answer to anybody else and tell us what to do, which is something that we're going to try and do for as long as possible. As we're so new to the market, we've been out in the world for about a month now. We're just going to have to wait and see what this looks like. I mean, like I said, we have our goal. We want to be a national, worldwide brand, right? And if we need some help along the way to make that possible, we're certainly open to it.
Awesome. All right, let's tip for the entrepreneurs out there. You've obviously the winning the award was sort of the catalyst, but there were a lot of steps that you took before you got there. A word of advice for anyone starting any company, what you learned along the way, because it sounds like this is sort of like your first quote unquote entrepreneurial venture. What was your big takeaway leading up to that phone call that you got? Maybe it's a positive or negative that you learned that helped build the company to where you are today.
Sure. No, absolutely. I mean, look, I've had some failures along the way as well, which have definitely, you hear people say like, it's okay to fail. And I do agree to a point. Like, that's how you learn. That's how you move on, right? And so I think don't be afraid to take risks, right? Don't be afraid to follow your dreams. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but it's something you're really passionate about, and nothing's going to get in your way. And also believe in yourself, because it's really easy down the lines to let that self-doubt creep in. And if you're doing something you love, something something you're passionate about, it's a win right there.
Awesome. His name is Blake Johns. He is the founder of Smokeye Hill Whiskey. Blake, I'm going to be driving by my Costco every day, waiting for that truck for Smokeye Hill to pull up and try it out, because I'm looking forward to giving it a taste. But I appreciate you taking the time. Congratulations on all your success so far, and I'm really looking forward to the future for you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Joe. It was my pleasure.
And that'll do it for another Forbes Books podcast. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify and hit subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes. You can always connect with me on X, LinkedIn, or Instagram at Joe Pardavila or TikTok at J Pardavila. And please don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.